All right, so get this. Mozilla, those folks over at Firefox, the ones who are like all about online privacy, right? Well, they've really stepped in it this time, and it's not just some like slow update or whatever. We're talking accusations of
For truth.
tracking. Yeah, actual tracking. And this isn't some like tinfoil hat conspiracy theory. This
Yeah.
is straight from like a big EU privacy rights group, formal complaint, and everything.
And the wild thing is Mozilla isn't even denying it. They're saying this new Firefox feature, they call it Privacy Preserving Attribution, or PPA for short. They're saying it actually makes things more private.
PPA, huh? Okay, that's a name that definitely needs a little unpacking. So before we get into why it's got everyone so riled up, hit me with the what. What's actually going on here?
Okay, so imagine like you're browsing online,
Okay.
just doing your thing, and you see an ad. Let's say it's for one of those super realistic robot pet dinosaurs,
Been there.
right? So this PPA thing, Firefox would store some like anonymized data about you seeing that ad. Then, say later on, you go to that robot dinosaur website and, decide to treat yourself.
Hmm.
PPA basically connects those dots for advertisers so they know the ad worked, but it's supposedly done without directly tying it to you specifically.
So, like, they're trying to figure out if those buy a robot dinosaur ads actually work, but without, like, keeping tabs on every single person who sees one. That almost sounds reasonable.
Yeah, that's what Mozilla's saying. But here's where things get a little messy.
Yeah.
See, right now, a lot of that ad tracking happens through cookies. Those little bits of data websites put on your computer. But with PPA, the tracking moves from the website to the browser itself.
Mhm.
So now it's Firefox, potentially, holding all the cards.
Hold on. So instead of, like, Amazon knowing that I clicked on that robot dinosaur ad because I have a secret prehistoric obsession, now it's Mozilla who's got that info tucked away.
Potentially, yeah. And that's a big reason why privacy groups are, well, freaking out.
Yeah.
They're saying this gives Mozilla way too much power. Even if they say the data is anonymized, they argue it violates something called GDPR, which are those really strict European data privacy laws that companies are always trying not to break. Plus, remember how Mozilla built their whole reputation on being like super privacy conscious? This just seems to go totally against that.
Okay, so we've got some serious double take action happening here. Mozilla, usually the good guys when it comes to privacy, are being accused of pulling a fast one with this whole PPA thing. On the one hand, they claim it's better for your privacy, but on the other, it feels like they're getting a bit too cozy with the whole ad tracking game. But before we get into whether Mozilla has actually gone to the dark side, let's dig a little deeper into their side of the story. What's their justification for all of this?
So their big argument is that the way online advertising works right now is already a complete privacy nightmare. And to be fair, it kind of is. They say PKA is like a compromise, a way to let advertisers see if their ads are effective, but without resorting to all the creepy, super invasive tracking that's become the norm.
So it's like they're saying, look, we get it, target ads are weird, but this is the best way we've found to keep the lights on without, selling your soul to the data demons.
Basically.
Hmm.
And they really emphasize this technique called differential privacy that they're using. It's supposed to, like, throw in some randomness to the data to make it harder to identify people.
Okay.
But, and this is but some security experts are saying, even with that, there's still a risk that someone could put the pieces together, especially if they have enough data and computing power. It's like trying to solve a giant jigsaw puzzle. Might be tough, but it's not impossible.
So Mozilla's walking this tightrope, trying to balance making money from ads with, not completely betraying their users' trust. But you mentioned this has caused like a stir. Tell me more about that.
Oh, it's not just a stir. It's like a 5-alarm digital firestorm.
Whoa, really?
Yeah, and a big part of it is that Mozilla decided to turn PPA on by default in Firefox.
Wait, so even if you don't know what PPA is, even if you think it's some kind of fancy coffee drink, Firefox is just like, oh, like collecting this data in the background.
That's what's got everyone up in arms. See, those strict GDPR rules we talked about, they require what they call explicit consent for this kind of data collection. And turning PPA on by default, that's the opposite of explicit consent. It's like assuming everyone wants extra pickles on their burger just because you like them.
Right.
And the folks over at NOIB, that EU privacy rights group, they are not happy about it. They filed a formal complaint, and if Mozilla loses, they could be looking at some massive fines.
Yikes. But I keep thinking back to what you said about Mozilla needing to make money somehow. I mean, they're not Google, right? They can't just slap ads on everything. So if not this like ad-supported model, then what's the alternative? Do we all just like start paying for
That's
Firefox?
the million-dollar question, right? Some people say, yeah, subscriptions are the way to go. Like, look at streaming services. Pay a monthly fee, no more ads. But then there are folks talking about something even more radical, like decentralizing the internet.
Decentralizing the internet. Okay, now we're getting into some matrix level stuff here.
Yeah, it's a pretty out there idea, but basically instead of these giant companies controlling everything,
Yeah.
imagine a more distributed internet,
Mm.
where users have more control over their own data. It's a completely different way of thinking about the online world.
Okay, so let's say we just scrap this whole ad-driven model. Everyone's data is their own, and we're all like living happily ever after in this decentralized internet utopia. Sounds great in theory, but how realistic is it?
Well, there are definitely some hurdles. Subscription models can create these paywalls where only people who can afford it can actually access certain content. And decentralization, figuring out how to moderate content, prevent abuse, and just like keep the whole thing from turning into total chaos, that's a whole other can of worms.
So no easy answers, just a whole lot of complicated questions. This is making my head spin a little, and I bet our listeners are feeling it too. So let's bring it back down to earth for a second. Let's say you're listening to this right now and thinking, okay, this whole PPA thing sounds kind of sketchy. What can I actually do about it?
First things first, go check your Firefox settings. You can actually turn PPA off, though Mozilla doesn't exactly make it super obvious. It's a little bit buried in the privacy and security settings.
So not quite hidden in plain sight, but also not exactly shouting it from the rooftops.
Exactly. But hey, at least you can turn it off, which is more than you can say for some other tracking stuff out there. And look, this whole situation just shows how important it is to, not just blindly trust tech companies, even the ones with a good track record.
That's fair. But with all the complicated algorithms and constantly changing technology, it's easy to feel kind of powerless, like we're all just along for the ride.
I get that. But remember, you're not powerless. We all have a voice, and we vote with, our clicks, our downloads, even our wallets. When enough people demand better privacy, companies have to listen. This whole PPA thing just proves it.
So what you're saying is, don't get mad, get informed, do your research, adjust those settings, and maybe even check out some different browsers or privacy extensions while you're at it. Knowledge is power, right?
Absolutely. And don't be afraid to, demand better from the companies that make the tech you use every day. The internet is always changing, and we, the users, have a say in how it changes.
It's like we want it all, right? A free and open internet where we can browse for robot dinosaurs to our heart's content, but we also don't want every little thing we do tracked and analyzed. And
Yeah, it's the big digital dilemma.
can we have our privacy and eat our cookies too?
Right. Well, that's what everyone's trying to figure.
Okay, enough with the cookie puns. Seriously though, is there any way out of this whole mess?
Well, some people think that technologies like this differential privacy, the one Mozilla is using for PPA, that those are a step in the right direction. But others are saying, no, that's just a Band-Aid on a bullet wound. We need something much more radical.
Okay, like what? Give me the good stuff.
Well, we were talking about decentralization before. Imagine if the internet wasn't controlled by these, giant corporations. What if your data actually belonged to you?
Right.
You managed it, you controlled it.
Okay.
It sounds crazy,
It does sound a little like science fiction, yeah.
but there are people working on making it a reality.
Okay, so walk me through this. No more creepy targeted ads, because no one's building these huge profiles on everything we do online. But then how would it even work? Who pays for all of it? We can't run the internet on good vibes alone, can we?
That's the big question, right? I mean, some people have proposed alternative funding models, like community-supported platforms, or maybe micropayments for content. Others think a decentralized internet could create completely new ways of, doing things, collaborating, creating value, things we can't even imagine right now.
It's a lot to wrap your head around. But I have to say, there's something kind of exciting about this idea of a truly open internet. One where we're not constantly bombarded with ads and worried about our information being used against us.
It's a good vision to have,
Yeah.
even if it's not totally clear how to get there yet. And the good news is, this whole thing with Mozilla and PPA, it shows that people are starting to expect more.
Yeah. Maybe we're not just cogs in the machine after all. Maybe we do have some say in how the internet evolves.
Exactly. Every time you change your privacy settings, every time you support a company that seems to share your values, you're kind of voting for the kind of digital world you want to live in.
So as we wrap up here, what's the one thing you really want our listeners to take away from all of this?
Stay curious, stay informed, and most importantly, don't check out. Don't be afraid to Like, ask questions, to challenge the way things are, and to just demand better from the companies that are shaping your online world.
Well said. And on that note, we'll leave you with something to think about. Is Mozilla's PPA a step towards a more privacy conscious internet, or is it like a wolf in sheep's clothing? Only time will tell. One thing's for sure, this conversation about how we balance the freedom and, the openness of the internet with our own privacy, that's not going away anytime soon. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive, and we'll be back next time with another look at what's going on in the wild world of tech.